Hello and welcome to The Debrief. I'm Seth Resler.
I'm Becky Scarcello.
And this is the show where we meet the creatives who are shaping Detroit.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. I like
Yes.
I like some animation in it. Here's the thing. Today we're going to talk about representation. Us two white people.
Right. Well,
me and my co-host, the white woman named Becky.
I know. Can you get more basic?
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. As a white male, this is not something that I run into often.
Right.
There are plenty of white males in popular culture. I am
Everywhere.
very well represented.
Yes.
I ran into it recently because, my girlfriend is black. Her grandkids are black, and they were over one day.
Mhm.
And I'm a big sci-fi fan, and I'm, the girl's a teenager in that age.
You want to
where
share it?
I'm like, oh, I want to get you all excited about this stuff. And there just isn't a lot of sci-fi with black women in it.
Yeah.
And even when there is, it's kind of like the one, and it's not the main character. And it's
just
not
in the background.
There isn't a lot of representation
Mhm.
to the point where I actually was going on Amazon going, okay, I got to find some books. I got to find some movies. I got to find something that's a little bit better. Well, that's really important. And we're going to talk about that today with our guest because she's a woman who found herself in a similar situation, right? She's looking at pop culture. She's saying, there's not a lot of people that look like me.
Right. Or told my story.
Or told my story or on the big screen. So we're going to talk about how an Iraqi American woman took her story and turned it, first of all, into a book.
Yep.
And is now turning into an indie film for the first time.
Yeah.
Our guest today is Wiam Nemu. She is an award-winning author, filmmaker, and journalist. She's also the executive director of the Chaldean Cultural Center over in West Bloomfield. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
So be here.
Yeah. So let's, can you set the scene for us? Tell us the premise of your novel and upcoming film, Pomegranate.
Well, it's about a liberal Muslim woman who lives across the street from a conservative Christian, a Chaldean. And it was the premise for it. I had the idea during the 2016 elections. There was a lot of tension going on everywhere, but particularly between the Chaldean community, as they are Christians, and the Muslim community. And I don't know if the audience knows this, but Michigan has the largest population of Iraqi-born residents in the United States. And so this was there was a lot of tension going on. And I thought, there was a lot of noise out there. I thought, let me take all of that's what's happening and create a story out of it, like do something productive. And so I wrote this story from the version of a liberal Muslim woman. And they live across the street, and there's a lot of humor in the story. And it's a very authentic Iraqi American story, which, by the way, you were talking about the movies that are out there. During the pandemic, my husband and I spent a lot of time watching Netflix, like everybody else started doing. And I could not find a single Iraqi American film. Now, Netflix has a huge selection of Arab films, a category for Arab films, which are really great, but none of them are made by Iraqi filmmakers. There's from Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, all over the world. And I really did not even realize that it was that bad, that our voices were not heard to that extent. So, and this was already after Pomegranate has been out there. The script was selected final quarter finalist by Francis Coppola Zoetrope. So I was very proud of that. And recently, Scott Rosenfeld, the producer of Home Alone and Mystic Pizza, he became the executive producer of this film. Wow. So we're very, very excited. So that means, and we're hoping to start shooting by the end of the summer, early fall.
That's awesome.
That is amazing. Yeah. So did you set out to be such a trailblazer? What from your experience kind of inspired you to do this?
Well, I always knew that I was going to write books. I don't know if from age 19, at least, I knew I was going to write books, and I set out to do that. What I was surprised is that the lack of books that were authentic from Arab Americans in general, but particularly by Iraqis, and even less by women. So once I decided to be a writer, shortly afterwards, when I saw the stereotype and the lack of Iraqi American artists, I decided that my stories would be like even the ones that are considered novels and fiction, but they're all based on true stories, really. And they're kind of autobiographical. So, I mean, I could use myself as one of the main characters and bringing some of the things that I don't necessarily live through, 1 year, but through my lifetime, and kind of play around with it. And the reason I purposely did that is because there is a void. There's a void in the area that I feel responsible to fill, because if we're not going to tell our stories, somebody else who doesn't know what they are will. And as a woman, this is especially important for me as a mom. I have a son and a daughter, and I want my children to see authentic stories of themselves out there, whether through books or films.
Yeah, it's important to see yourself reflected in a true way in culture. I mean, instead of just left out of the narrative.
What would you say that might not be there if somebody else who didn't have your background wrote your story?
Yeah, stereotypes and things.
What are the things that you want to make sure come through?
Well, the women are always placed as victims. During my career as a writer and a filmmaker, I was always by the industry, the publishing and the film industry. They always tried to gear me to write things that I could not relate to, like write about honor killing, it'll be a bestseller. I don't know anything about honor killing, so
and it wasn't you.
And to top it off, that's like goes against what I'm trying to do here. But that was the message. It was like, if you're, we want diverse voices, but we want them the way we see them to be. So if you don't fit into that diversity, then you're not really what you're looking for. And that really was a shocker over time, because I feel like, given, they said that we want ethnic voices, diverse voices, and I feel like I fall into all these categories, but I don't fall into the category of the victim, Middle Easterner. We have our issues like everybody else, but none of the women in my stories are victims. They just have their own challenges. And so these two main characters, the two women, both the Christian and the Muslim, has their own challenges they have to overcome. But, they have strong personalities. They're beautiful women, and they can carry their own.
Nice. So the book, you wrote this novel, you've got writing down. You have 13 books under your
this was my 14th book.
14 books under your belt. So
I haven't read 14 books.
He's too busy watching Netflix.
Right.
So you had that down.
Which is good.
Right. I mean, we all have our things. But how do you go about, hey, how do we make this a movie? Did someone come to you? What was the process?
Well, the process was actually, because I decided that this was going to be directed by me. I had directed a feature before, which won 2 international awards. It was a documentary, though. So it's called The Great American Family. And that, too, was a book that I made into a feature documentary. It won 2 international awards. The book won an Eric Hoffer Award. It was optioned by an LA producer. Is still optioned today. And the documentary was picked up by Jeff Porter in Beverly Hills, California. And so even though I've never directed a feature film, like a narrative, but who would know a story like this more than me, especially about, not only is it because of the community, but as women. And, I've had people that I worked with, like including men that were very helpful for me, but then they will try to make these changes. And I'm like, no, an Iraqi girl would never say that. And, and imagine if a director came, it will just change it. One thing that Scott Rosenfeld said when he read the script, he said that he knew that he was going to like the premise, and he saw that there was a lot of value in the story, but he was not expecting to laugh so much. And the reason that he was able to laugh is because really this story is authentic. It's just like Tyler Perry, when he writes about his community, he can say things that he lived through that we would not really be able to say it that way with kind of a lot of love. And, so he's talking about himself and his community, and it comes out different. And I just feel like we're not given that opportunity to do that. And maybe that's even a wrong way of saying it. I don't know that we need to be given an opportunity. We live in this great country that, if you want to find a way, you will find a way. You don't have to wait for anybody's permission. So.
Oh, well, I like that answer. All right. I'm going to make some changes around here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm going to get myself into trouble.
Well, you seem to me that you kind of take challenges head on. But what were some of these obstacles that you encountered? Can you get more specific about things you came up against?
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, a lot of rejections and, getting 2 top New York agents and then getting to the editorial board and always being told that, my story doesn't really fit into that. It's not really marketable. It's not. And I know that the stories were good. And the proof of that is the awards that I have won and what I've been able, I had to find my own way in order to stay true to what I was trying to do. And that was a huge, huge struggle. And in my community, the arts and culture, I can't really say that we're strong in that area. We're strong in family and faith and businesses, but not in arts and culture. And a lot of that is due that we come from a war-torn land. So we have been on survival mode for a long time. Mm-hmm. And arts and culture is a luxury. And that luxury has not been pampered and nurtured enough. And so I felt myself that I have that desire and that love, but I was so alone in my community. And then I felt misunderstood or not commercial enough in the Western industry. But then all that really looking back didn't matter because there was the people that picked out understood what I was doing, and they kept their eye on me and they nurtured me and they stayed after me and they made sure that if I fell, they picked me back up. And I owe so much to them. I will never, ever forget them. They're in my books. They're in my hearts. And I have a lot of faith in God, and I knew that that's just my path. So I was trying to stay true to that. But it's really the people that I'm surrounded by that understood where I came from, what were my struggles as a woman in this community, and just held sacred ground for me to make sure that that I get, to talk the way I'm talking today, because that's not how I talk.
That started out.
I owe a lot of gratitude for them, and I do try to pay in any which way I can.
All right. Well, we've got one last question we want to ask you before you go. Hope you're ready. William Namu, who is an award-winning author, filmmaker, and journalist, also the executive director of the Chaldean Cultural Center. We want you to name a Detroit creative that everybody should know.
Well, Ishtar Restaurant in Sterling Heights. If you go into that restaurant, you will feel like you're in Iraq. There's art that is made by a local Assyrian artist. That is beautiful art, and also the way they cook, and they have somebody that comes out and with a traditional outfit that pours traditional tea and traditional Iraqi cups. So you really feel that you're like visiting Iraq.
I don't know that I've ever had Iraqi food. I want to go try that.
I want that tea now.
Right. Yeah, I'm all about it. So,
you guys can come over anytime, okay?
Yes, thank you so much.
Give me a call. I'll cook for you guys.
Oh my God. Okay, you're on.
So I know that you're just at the beginning of the filmmaking process, but people can read the book now. The book is called Pomegranate by William Namu. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really enjoyed having you.
And sharing your story.
Thank you. This was my first interview for this book, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, you were fantastic. Thank you. That's it for us. I'm Seth Resler.
I'm Becky Scarcello.
Remember, you can get the show in any number of places, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. You can find the video. We have a mobile app, or you can ask Alexa. Until next time, Detroit's moving.
Keep up.